It was just another quiet Monday night in Johnston County, North Carolina. The kind of night where the world outside your window feels still, calm, ordinary. But at 11:57 p.m., that silence shattered with one phone call that would change everything. Before we dive in, kindly subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell so you're the first to catch every chilling story as it drops. Because in this channel, we uncover the darkest, most shocking true stories that the world can't stop talking about. Now, let's get into the Johnston County nightmare, the 911 call that changed everything. Before the world knew his name, Wellington Delano Dickens III was just another face in a quiet Johnston County neighborhood. A father of 5, known by a few, seen by many, understood by almost no one. Neighbors said the Dickens family kept mostly to themselves. The children, ages 3, 6, 9, 10, and 18, were occasionally seen playing in the yard or helping their father unload groceries. Nothing ever seemed out of the ordinary. But as the saying goes, sometimes evil doesn't look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like a father standing behind a white picket fence. What happened inside that home in Zebulon is still something investigators are piecing together. But what they know starts with a call to 911 late Monday night. It wasn't a cry for help. It wasn't panic. It was a confession. "This is Wellington Dickens," he told the operator. "I've killed my children." On the other end of the line, dispatchers froze. Was it a prank? A mental breakdown? Or something far, far worse? They traced the call to Springtooth Drive, a quiet cul-de-sac lined with middle-class homes and trim lawns, the kind of place you'd never expect to become a national headline. When deputies arrived, Wellington was waiting at the door. Calm, composed. He told officers that one of his children, his 3-year-old son, was still alive inside. They rushed in, expecting chaos, screams, maybe even danger. Instead, they found silence. A small boy sat alone in the living room, unharmed but surrounded by an emptiness that words can't describe. And then came the moment no officer ever forgets. Wellington gestured toward the garage. "They're in there," he said quietly, "in the car." The deputies opened the garage door and found a sedan parked inside. The air was heavy, suffocating. When they popped open the trunk, the horror revealed itself. Inside lay the remains of 4 children. 3 were his biological kids, ages 6, 9, and 10, and the 4th, an 18-year-old stepchild. Their bodies, investigators believe, had been there for some time. This wasn't just a recent outburst or a sudden loss of control. Something darker, deeper, had taken hold long before that night. Deputies secured the scene and called in the State Bureau of Investigation, along with forensic teams, who began documenting every inch of the home. Meanwhile, Wellington Delano Dickens III was led away in handcuffs, expressionless. He was charged with 1 count of murder, though everyone, including the sheriff's office, knew that number would soon rise. At that moment, Johnston County wasn't just a dot on the map anymore. It was the site of one of the most disturbing cases North Carolina had seen in years. And yet, one haunting question remained unanswered. Why? What could possibly make a man turn on his own children, his blood, his family? Next, we look deeper into the investigation, the evidence found inside the home, and the chilling details detectives uncovered in the hours that followed. When the call first came in, deputies thought it might be a misunderstanding, maybe a mental health episode gone too far. But as forensic teams began sweeping through the Springtooth Drive home, that illusion shattered almost instantly. The garage, where the car sat parked, became the focal point of the investigation. The trunk was carefully opened again, and inside lay the tragic evidence of Wellington Dickens III's confession. For small bodies, wrapped and hidden away as though the father wanted to bury his sins beneath the metal shell of his vehicle. Investigators say the air inside was stale, like it hadn't been disturbed in weeks. That detail alone told them this was not something that had just happened. This was something that had been covered up. The State Bureau of Investigation, SBI, joined forces with the Johnston County Sheriff's Office, setting up a crime scene perimeter that extended from the garage to the interior of the home. Inside, the scene was chillingly normal. Children's drawings were taped to the walls. Small shoes were still neatly lined up near the door. A half-eaten box of cereal sat open on the counter. It was as if time had frozen, except for the glaring absence of laughter, movement, and life. Detectives methodically began piecing together what could have led to this horrific event. Neighbors described Wellington as a man who kept to himself. Some said he was polite but quiet. Others said they hadn't seen the children in weeks, maybe months. We thought maybe they moved or were staying with family. One neighbor told local reporters, "We never imagined something like this was happening right next door." Investigators soon confirmed what everyone feared, that the remains in the trunk belonged to Dickens' 3 biological children, aged 6, 9, and 10, and his 18-year-old stepchild. But there was one more heart-wrenching discovery. Evidence suggested that the children had been dead for some time before Wellington made that fateful 911 call. No one knows exactly when they died, or why he decided to confess now. After weeks, maybe months, of silence, the autopsies were ordered immediately. While results hadn't been publicly released, investigators hinted that the deaths did not appear accidental. The sheriff's office made it clear they were treating this as a homicide investigation. Back inside the home, detectives found no signs of forced entry, no signs of a struggle. It appeared the children's final moments happened quietly, perhaps while they slept. Every clue pointed to a single horrifying conclusion. This wasn't rage. This wasn't an accident. It was intentional. Meanwhile, the community of Zebulon was in shock. Parents clutched their children tighter that night, whispering prayers, trying to make sense of the senseless. One local resident summed up the feeling in a trembling voice. "I've lived here 20 years. We've never seen anything like this." How do you explain a father doing something like that? Authorities transported Wellington Dickens III to the Johnston County Jail, where he was charged with 1 count of murder, though more charges were pending. He was held without bond. Reporters asked Sheriff Steve Bizzell what his office would do next. His answer was brief and heavy: "We will get justice for those children." But behind that promise lies a web of unanswered questions about Wellington's state of mind, his relationship with his family, and why he finally decided to call 911 after all that time. Because somewhere between his confession and his silence lies the reason. And when investigators finally uncover that reason, it might change everything we think we know about this man and the tragedy that unfolded behind his closed doors. When Wellington Delano Dickens III was taken into custody, deputies described his demeanor in one word: calm. No tears, no confusion, no remorse. He answered every question clearly, as if what had just happened was something he had already accepted or planned. At the Johnston County Jail, officers processed him quietly. They knew the eyes of the entire country were now on their small town. Wellington was officially charged with 1 count of murder, but the sheriff made it clear that more charges were imminent. Investigators were still working through layers of evidence: old text messages, computer files, even social media accounts, to piece together the mental and emotional spiral that may have led to the deaths of his children. No one in Zebulon could believe it. The neighborhood that once echoed with the sound of kids playing was now filled with news vans, flashing lights, and stunned silence. A mother down the street told reporters, "Those kids used to wave at the school bus every morning. I just can't believe they're gone." Another neighbor said she saw Wellington earlier that day. He looked normal, like nothing was wrong. The Johnston County Sheriff's Office held a brief press conference. Sheriff Steve Bizzell, visibly shaken, confirmed that a 3-year-old child had survived and was now in protective custody. He added that mental health experts were being brought in to help both investigators and the community cope with what they had witnessed. "This is one of the most heartbreaking cases we've ever seen," the sheriff said. "We're dealing with 4 innocent lives lost and a community that will never be the same." Online, the story spread quickly, shared by thousands, questioned by millions. How could a father live for weeks, possibly months, with his children's bodies hidden in his own home? What went through his mind before making that chilling 911 call? Authorities still don't have all the answers, but they've made one thing clear: this case is far from over. As Wellington sits behind bars, investigators are digging deeper into his past, his relationships, his finances, his state of mind, trying to find out what pushed him past the breaking point. And the truth they uncover may finally answer the question haunting everyone who's heard this story. Was this a moment of madness, or the result of something far more calculated? As the dust settles over Zebulon, one truth remains. Nothing will ever erase the horror of what happened inside that quiet home. For children, their future's stolen, a father behind bars, and a community left to pick up the pieces of a nightmare that will never fully fade. Investigators continue their work, combing through every message call in detail, searching for a motive that still makes no sense. People who knew Wellington described him as calm, polite, and soft-spoken. No one saw the darkness creeping in. The surviving 3-year-old, now under protective care, represents both tragedy and hope, the single light left in the story consumed by darkness. Across town, flowers and candles line the family's driveway. Strangers stop, whisper a prayer, and walk away in tears. The home stands silent, a shell of memories, of laughter now gone. This case reminds us that evil doesn't always appear in the shadows. Sometimes it wears a familiar face. And sometimes the greatest mysteries aren't found in the evidence, but in the hearts of those we thought we knew best. As the investigation continues, one question lingers. Was this a sudden break, or a plan long in the making? Only time and truth can answer that. Until then, the streets of Zebulon will never sound the same. Drop of blood, for children gone, one father behind bars, and a town forever haunted by what happened behind that garage door. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the most terrifying monsters aren't strangers in the dark, but people we thought we knew. For children gone, one survivor left behind, and a community still searching for answers. If you found this story chilling, make sure to subscribe, because every week we uncover more real-life mysteries. Crimes that shock, stories that linger, and truths that deserve to be heard. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.